I am enough. These 3 words sound simple, yet for most people, they feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Not because they are untrue, but because we were never taught to believe them. From an early age, life subtly trained us to think that worth is conditional. We were praised when we performed well, corrected when we failed, compared when we slowed down, and measured constantly against expectations that were never our own. Somewhere along the way, a quiet belief settled in, that we must become more before we can feel whole, earn more before we can feel secure, and achieve more before we can feel worthy of success, happiness, or wealth. This audiobook exists to gently dissolve that belief. I am enough, growth in progress, is not about rejecting ambition or lowering standards. It is about understanding that real growth does not begin with self-criticism, but with self-trust. It is about realizing that success built on self-doubt is exhausting, while success built on self-worth is sustainable. Many people chase money, recognition, and external validation, hoping it will finally silence the inner voice that says, "You are not doing enough." But no amount of achievement can quiet a voice that was never trained to feel enough in the first place. This journey invites you to pause and look inward before moving forward. When you believe you are already enough, something remarkable happens. Your goals do not disappear. They become clearer. Your hunger for growth does not fade. It becomes healthier. Money stops feeling like proof of value and starts feeling like a tool for freedom. Success no longer feels like a race you might lose, but a path you are intentionally walking. From this mindset, growth becomes natural, consistent, and deeply fulfilling. Throughout this audiobook, you will hear ideas that challenge the way you've been taught to think about success and money. You will begin to see how your internal beliefs quietly shape your income, your confidence, your decisions, and your future. You will understand why self-worth and wealth are deeply connected, and why growth accelerates the moment you stop trying to prove yourself and start trusting yourself. This is not a story of overnight transformation. It is a story of steady evolution, of becoming more while honoring who you already are, of building success without burnout, of pursuing wealth without fear, of allowing growth without shame. You are not behind in life. You are not late. You are not broken. You are in progress. And progress does not mean you are incomplete. It means you are expanding. This audiobook will walk with you as you release old beliefs, redefine success, and step into a version of growth that feels aligned, powerful, and sustainable. As you listen, allow these words to settle gently. There is nothing you need to fix before moving forward. You are enough now, and your growth is unfolding exactly as it should. Chapter 1. The moment you realize you are enough, expanded 1,000 words. The journey truly begins with a pause. Not a dramatic turning point or a sudden breakthrough, but a quiet moment where you stop running long enough to ask yourself an honest question. Why does success feel so exhausting? Why does reaching one goal only reveal another gap? Why does comparison steal joy even when progress is real? In this moment of reflection, you begin to notice something unsettling, that the finish line you are chasing keeps moving, and no matter how much you achieve, the feeling of enough never arrives. Most people spend their lives trying to earn worth. They believe worth is something granted after accomplishments, promotions, financial milestones, or social approval. This belief quietly shapes decisions. It influences the jobs you accept, the risks you avoid, the money you chase, and the dreams you delay. You may tell yourself that once you earn more, save more, or achieve more, you will finally feel confident. But the truth is, confidence does not arrive after success. Success expands after confidence. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to recognize how deeply the idea of not enough has influenced your life. It shows up in hesitation, in overthinking, in the fear of starting too late or failing publicly. It appears in your relationship with money, where fear drives spending or scarcity limits opportunity. It hides behind perfectionism, where you delay action because you believe you must be more prepared before you begin. Then comes a subtle but powerful realization. What if the problem was never a lack of ability, but a lack of trust in yourself? When you begin to accept that worth is not something you earn, but something you recognize, your inner world shifts. You stop waiting for permission to grow. You stop shrinking your dreams to fit your doubts. The idea that I will be enough when I achieve this slowly loosens its grip, and in its place emerges a calmer, stronger belief. I am enough to begin. This belief changes everything. From this place, ambition feels lighter. Goals feel exciting instead of intimidating. You no longer chase success to prove something. You pursue it because it aligns with who you are becoming. Money stops feeling like a measure of identity and starts feeling like a resource you can manage intentionally. You take action not because you are afraid of falling behind, but because you trust your ability to grow. This realization does not make you complacent. In fact, it does the opposite. When you no longer doubt your worth, your energy is no longer wasted on comparison or self-criticism. That energy becomes available for learning, creating, and building. You begin to make decisions from clarity instead of fear. You stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start asking, "What feels aligned with my growth?" As confidence deepens, resilience strengthens. Setbacks no longer feel like proof of inadequacy. They feel like feedback. You recover faster, adapt smarter, and move forward with intention. Your relationship with success becomes healthier because it is no longer tied to your identity. Your relationship with money becomes clearer because it is no longer charged with emotional pressure. This chapter marks the foundation of the entire journey. It is the moment you realize that growth does not start with fixing yourself, but with trusting yourself. It is the moment you understand that you were never meant to arrive at perfection before beginning. You were meant to grow through action, learning, and experience. I am enough does not mean I am finished. It means I am capable. It means I'm allowed to grow. It means I can move forward without shame. From this realization, everything changes. And this is only the beginning. Chapter 2. Rewriting the story you tell yourself. Every life is shaped by a story that runs quietly in the background. Most people are not even aware it exists, yet it influences nearly every decision they make. This story explains who you believe you are, what you think is possible for you, how you approach success, and how you relate to money. It was not written in a single moment. It was built slowly through experiences, words spoken by others, moments of failure, moments of praise, and long periods of silence where you drew conclusions about yourself without realizing it. For many, this story begins with limitation. You may have learned early on that success belongs to a few, not to everyone. You may have watched people struggle financially and absorbed the belief that money is always hard to earn. You may have been told, directly or indirectly, to be realistic, to not dream too big, to stay within safe boundaries. Over time, these messages formed a narrative that felt familiar and therefore true. Without questioning it, you began to live inside it. This inner story shows up in subtle ways. It appears when you hesitate to charge what you deserve. It appears when you downplay your achievements. It appears when you feel guilty for wanting more than survival. It appears when you delay action, telling yourself you are not ready yet, not skilled enough yet, not confident enough yet. The story quietly says, this is just how life is. And because it feels familiar, you believe it. The turning point in growth happens when you begin to observe this story rather than obey it. In this chapter, awareness becomes your greatest ally. You start noticing the language you use with yourself. You hear the phrases that repeat automatically in your mind. You begin to recognize how often your thoughts predict failure before action even begins. This observation is not about blame. It is about clarity. The moment you see that your thoughts are learned patterns rather than absolute truths, you reclaim your power to change them. Rewriting your story does not mean pretending fear doesn't exist. It means refusing to let fear narrate your life. Slowly, the narrative begins to shift. Instead of telling yourself that success is out of reach, You begin to see it as a process. Instead of believing that money is scarce, you begin to understand that skills, value, and consistency create opportunity. Instead of labeling setbacks as proof that you are incapable, you begin to view them as evidence that you're learning. This shift is subtle, but it is transformative. When your inner story changes, your decisions change. You take calculated risks instead of avoiding opportunity. You invest time in learning rather than waiting for confidence to magically appear. You begin to speak differently, act differently, and plan differently. Not because the world changed, but because your interpretation of it did. This chapter reveals a powerful truth. Belief always comes before results. Income often follows identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you unconsciously recreate struggle. If you see yourself as someone who grows, learns, and adapts, you begin to attract opportunities aligned with that identity. This does not happen through positive thinking alone. It happens through consistent alignment between belief and action. As you rewrite your story, you also release the need to rush. The old narrative may have told you that you are behind, that time is running out, that others are ahead of you. The new story understands that growth unfolds at its own pace. You stop measuring your progress against others and start measuring it against who you were yesterday. This creates patience without killing ambition. Your relationship with money begins to soften as well. Fear-based thinking loosens its grip. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intentionally. You plan instead of panic. You build instead of chase. Money becomes something you can learn to manage, grow, and direct rather than something that controls your emotions. One of the most powerful changes that occurs in this chapter is the shift from I can to I'm learning. This single change alters everything. It turns obstacles into lessons and mistakes into momentum. It allows you to move forward, even when confidence is not perfect. You no longer wait to feel ready. You move because growth creates readiness. Rewriting your story is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. Each time you choose awareness over autopilot, you strengthen the new narrative. Each time you act despite fear, you reinforce trust in yourself. Each time you question a limiting belief, you create space for expansion. This chapter reminds you that your past does not define your potential. Your previous failures do not predict your future success. They are chapters, not conclusions. You are allowed to outgrow old identities. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to want more without apologizing for it. As this chapter closes, you begin to understand that your life is not waiting for permission to change. It is responding to the story you choose to believe. And now, for the first time, you are choosing consciously. You are no longer repeating the past. You are rewriting the future. And with every new belief, your growth continues. Chapter 3. Growth does not mean you are incomplete. One of the most damaging beliefs people carry is the idea that the desire to grow is proof that something is wrong with them. This belief hides quietly beneath ambition, turning every goal into a judgment and every dream into evidence of inadequacy. Many people want more success, more money, more clarity, yet feel a subtle shame for wanting these things. They question themselves, wondering if the desire for growth means they are ungrateful or never satisfied. This chapter exists to dissolve that misunderstanding. Growth is not correction. Growth is expansion. The moment you begin to see growth as expansion rather than repair, your entire relationship with success changes. You stop chasing improvement out of self-criticism and start moving forward out of curiosity and alignment. You realize that wanting more does not mean you're dissatisfied with who you are. It means you are responding to your potential. Trees do not grow because they are broken. Rivers do not move because they are incomplete. Growth is a natural expression of life itself. For many people, ambition has been tied to insecurity. They work harder not because they feel capable, but because they fear being left behind. This creates pressure, burnout, and a constant sense of never arriving. In this chapter, that pattern begins to unravel. You begin to understand that growth fueled by fear feels heavy, while growth fueled by self-acceptance feels energizing. When you accept yourself as you are, progress accelerates because resistance disappears. This shift deeply impacts your relationship with money. When growth is driven by insecurity, financial decisions are often reactive. You chase income to prove worth, overspend to fill emotional gaps, or under-earn because you fear visibility and responsibility. But when growth is driven by clarity, money becomes neutral. You begin to see it as a system you can learn, improve, and align with your values. You no longer feel guilty for wanting financial freedom. You understand that money supports choice, stability, and contribution. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to separate your identity from your current results. You're not your income. You're not your bank balance. You're not your job title. These are expressions of where you are in the process, not definitions of who you are. This realization creates emotional space. In that space, confidence grows naturally. Many people unknowingly resist growth because they fear that accepting themselves will make them complacent. They believe self-acceptance will remove motivation. But the opposite is true. When you stop fighting yourself, your energy becomes focused and intentional. You pursue goals that matter rather than chasing validation. You grow faster because your efforts are no longer scattered. This chapter gently reframes effort. You begin to see that discipline does not require self-punishment. Consistency does not require self-criticism. Growth can be firm and compassionate at the same time. This balance is what sustains long-term success. Emotionally, you start releasing the pressure to constantly prove yourself. You stop measuring your worth by productivity alone. Rest becomes strategic rather than guilty. Reflection becomes productive rather than indulgent. These shifts may feel subtle, but they transform how you experience both success and failure. As you grow from self-acceptance, setbacks lose their emotional charge. Mistakes no longer threaten your identity. They become information. You recover quicker because you no longer interpret difficulty as personal failure. This resilience is one of the most valuable assets in any success journey. The chapter also invites you to release the belief that growth must always be visible or dramatic. Real growth often happens quietly. It shows up in improved decision-making, stronger boundaries, and increased self-trust. It appears when you respond calmly instead of reacting emotionally. It appears when you choose alignment over urgency. Financial growth follows this internal shift. You begin to think long-term rather than chasing immediate relief. You build systems instead of relying on motivation. You invest in skills, habits, and knowledge that compound over time. Money starts working with you rather than against you. By the end of this chapter, you understand that growth and progress is not an apology for where you are. It is an acknowledgement of movement. You are not late. You are not behind. You are in motion. And motion, guided by self-acceptance, always leads somewhere meaningful. You do not need to become someone else to grow. You need to become more honest with yourself, more aligned with your values, more trusting of your capacity to evolve. Growth does not mean you are incomplete. It means you are always capable of more. Chapter 4. The relationship between self-worth and wealth. Money is often treated as a purely practical subject, something to be earned, saved, or spent with logic alone. But beneath numbers and strategies lies something far more powerful: emotion. This chapter invites you to look beyond financial techniques and into the deeper truth that money almost always follows self-worth. Not because money defines value, but because belief shapes behavior, and behavior shapes results. Many people work hard, yet remain stuck financially, not because they lack skill or effort, but because their inner relationship with worth quietly limits what they allow themselves to receive. They may undercharge for their work, stay in environments that undervalue them, or sabotage progress when success begins to feel unfamiliar. These patterns are rarely conscious. They are rooted in subtle beliefs about what feels deserved. When self-worth is low, money feels heavy. It carries fear, pressure, and emotional weight. Every financial decision becomes charged with anxiety. Earning feels exhausting, spending feels guilty, and saving feels impossible. In this state, Money becomes something to survive rather than something to grow with. This is not a discipline problem. It is a belief problem. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to recognize how your internal value system reflects in your financial life. You see how the way you speak to yourself mirrors the way you negotiate, invest, or take risks. When you doubt yourself internally, you hesitate externally. When you don't trust your worth, you don't trust your ability to handle more responsibility, more income, or more opportunity. The shift begins when you stop asking, "How can I make more money?" and start asking, "How do I relate to value?" Self-worth does not mean entitlement. It means clarity. It means understanding the exchange between the value you offer and the compensation you receive. When you respect your time, your skills, and your energy, you naturally set stronger boundaries. You stop settling for quick wins that drain you. You stop saying yes to opportunities that cost more than they return. This clarity creates space for sustainable wealth. As self-trust grows, financial behavior changes. You become more intentional with money. You plan instead of panic. You invest instead of avoid. You make decisions based on long-term alignment rather than short-term fear. This does not eliminate risk, but transforms how you experience it. Risk becomes calculated, not terrifying. This chapter also addresses the silent guilt many people carry around wealth. They worry that wanting more money makes them selfish or disconnected from values. But money itself is neutral. It amplifies what already exists. When guided by self-awareness, money becomes a tool for freedom, security, generosity, and impact. You begin to see that financial growth allows you to support others without sacrificing yourself. As your sense of worth stabilizes, comparison fades. You no longer measure your success against others because you understand that wealth is deeply personal. Your goals become aligned with your values, not social pressure. This alignment reduces stress and increases focus. You stop chasing income for validation and start building it for stability and choice. One of the most powerful transformations in this chapter is learning to receive without discomfort. Many people can work hard but struggle to receive rewards. They deflect praise, minimize success, and feel uneasy when things go well. This discomfort signals an inner ceiling on worth. As you raise that ceiling, receiving becomes natural. You allow success to land without guilt or fear of loss. Financial consistency begins here. You stop swinging between extremes. You stop self-sabotaging progress. You build habits that reflect respect for yourself. Budgeting becomes self-care rather than restriction. Saving becomes empowerment rather than sacrifice. Investing becomes belief in your future rather than a gamble. By the end of this chapter, you understand that wealth is not something you chase. It is something you align with. It responds to confidence, clarity, and consistency. It grows where self-worth is stable. You do not need to prove your value to earn money. You need to recognize your value to sustain it. When self-worth and wealth move together, growth becomes steady, purposeful, and deeply fulfilling. Chapter 5. Success without burnout. For a long time, success has been sold as sacrifice. The louder the struggle, the more valid the achievement appears. Long hours, constant pressure, and exhaustion are often worn like badges of honor. Many people believe that if they are not tired, they are not working hard enough, and if they rest, they are falling behind. This chapter exists to challenge that belief and replace it with a more sustainable truth. Burnout is not a requirement for success. Burnout happens when effort is driven by fear rather than clarity. When success is pursued to prove worth, rest feels dangerous. You push harder not because it is effective, but because slowing down triggers anxiety. Over time, this creates a cycle where productivity decreases, motivation fades, and progress feels heavier with every step. This is not a failure of discipline. It is a failure of alignment. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to understand that sustainable success is built on intention, not intensity. When you believe you are enough, you stop forcing progress and start designing it. Work becomes focused instead of frantic. You learn to direct energy where it matters rather than spreading it thin in every direction. The shift begins with clarity. When your goals are aligned with your values, effort feels purposeful. You no longer chase every opportunity out of fear of missing out. You choose deliberately. You say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. This clarity protects your energy and strengthens your results. It allows you to grow without losing yourself in the process. This chapter also reframes rest. Rest is not laziness. It is strategy. When you allow yourself to pause, reflect, and reset, you make better decisions. Creativity increases. Perspective sharpens. Emotional resilience improves. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding intentionally. In this state, even challenges feel manageable. Financial growth benefits deeply from this balance. When you are burned out, money decisions are often emotional. You may overspend for comfort or under-earn because you lack the energy to pursue better opportunities. But when your energy is stable, your financial choices become clearer. You plan long-term. You build systems. You think beyond immediate relief. As you move through this chapter, you begin to recognize the difference between busy and productive. Being busy often masks avoidance. Productivity is focused movement toward meaningful goals. You learn to measure progress by impact rather than exhaustion. This shift allows you to grow faster while doing less that drains you. Another powerful realization in this chapter is that success does not require constant pressure. Growth happens in cycles. There are seasons of effort and seasons of integration. When you respect these cycles, you avoid burnout and maintain momentum. You stop fighting your natural rhythm and start working with it. Emotionally, this chapter invites you to release guilt around slowing down. You begin to understand that taking care of your mental and emotional health is not selfish. It is foundational. Without it, no amount of success feels satisfying. With it, even small wins feel meaningful. This perspective also changes how you view long-term success. Instead of chasing quick results, you focus on consistency. You build habits that support your energy rather than deplete it. You create routines that sustain progress even on difficult days. This approach creates stability, both emotionally and financially. As the chapter closes, you realize that success is not meant to consume your life. It is meant to support it. True success allows space for growth, joy, connection, and peace. It does not demand constant sacrifice. It invites intentional effort. You are not meant to burn yourself to succeed. You are meant to build steadily, to grow intentionally, to succeed without losing your well-being. When success aligns with self-worth, burnout loses its power. Growth becomes sustainable, and progress continues, calm, confident, and strong. Chapter 6. Letting go of comparison and scarcity. Comparison is one of the quietest thieves of growth. It rarely announces itself loudly. Instead, it slips into the mind during moments of reflection, ambition, or uncertainty. You may be moving forward, making progress, even feeling hopeful, and suddenly you look sideways. You notice someone else's success, speed, or lifestyle, and in an instant, your own journey feels smaller. This chapter invites you to step out of that cycle and reclaim your emotional and creative freedom. Scarcity thinking is born from comparison. When you constantly measure yourself against others, life begins to feel like a competition with limited winners. Success appears scarce, money seems reserved for a few, and time feels like it is running out. In this mindset, growth becomes stressful. You rush decisions, doubt your path, and chase outcomes that were never aligned with you. Comparison convinces you that you are late, lacking, or losing, even when you are not. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to recognize that comparison is not about inspiration. It is about fear. It reflects uncertainty about your own direction. When clarity is missing, you look outward for benchmarks. But the problem is, you are comparing your behind-the-scenes reality with someone else's highlight reel. This distortion slowly erodes confidence and replaces curiosity with pressure. Letting go of comparison begins with understanding that success is not a single path. There is no universal timeline, no fixed formula, no shared definition of what it means to make it. Each person's journey unfolds according to different circumstances, skills, values, and opportunities. When you accept this, urgency softens. You stop racing against imaginary clocks. You begin to trust your pace. This shift has a powerful effect on your relationship with money. Scarcity thinking often leads to impulsive decisions. You chase quick gains out of fear of missing out. You feel anxious when others earn more or grow faster. But when you release comparison, money becomes less emotional. You begin to focus on your own strategy rather than reacting to someone else's results. As emotional pressure fades, creativity returns. You stop copying and start creating. You stop imitating and start innovating. Your ideas become clearer because they are no longer filtered through fear. This clarity allows you to build something authentic, something sustainable. Success built on authenticity lasts longer because it does not depend on external validation. This chapter also invites you to examine how scarcity thinking shapes your self-talk. You may notice thoughts that say there is not enough time, not enough opportunity, or not enough room for you. These thoughts create hesitation. They shrink vision. But when you challenge them, space opens. You begin to see opportunity everywhere, not because the world changed, but because your perception did. Abundance is not the absence of effort. It is the absence of fear-based thinking. When you shift into an abundance mindset, collaboration feels safer than competition. You celebrate others without feeling diminished. You learn from success rather than resenting it. This emotional maturity strengthens confidence and builds resilience. It allows you to grow without carrying unnecessary weight. Financially, abundance thinking encourages long-term planning. You stop reacting to market noise or social pressure. You focus on skills, systems, and value creation. You understand that wealth is not a one-time event, but a process that compounds with consistency. This patience becomes a powerful advantage. As this chapter continues, you begin to notice how freeing it feels to stay in your lane. Energy that was once spent on comparison is redirected toward improvement. You invest in learning. You refine your craft. You strengthen habits. Progress becomes personal and meaningful rather than performative. By the end of this chapter, you understand that letting go of comparison does not mean ignoring the world. It means engaging with it from a place of confidence rather than insecurity. You are inspired without being intimidated, motivated without being pressured. There is enough success to go around. There is enough time to grow. There is enough space for your journey. When scarcity dissolves, growth accelerates naturally. You move forward with calm focus, steady confidence, and emotional freedom, exactly where progress thrives. Chapter 7. Building Confidence Through Small Wins. Confidence is often misunderstood as something you either have or you don't. Many people believe confidence appears suddenly after a major achievement, a big financial breakthrough, or public recognition. In reality, confidence is built quietly, through repeated evidence that you can trust yourself. This chapter is about understanding that confidence is not a personality trait. It is a habit formed through action. Small wins are the foundation of that habit. When you commit to small, intentional actions and follow through, you send a powerful message to yourself. You prove that your words matter. You prove that your plans are not just ideas, but promises you keep. Over time, these small moments of follow-through build something far more valuable than motivation. They build self-trust. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to notice how often confidence is delayed unnecessarily. People wait to feel ready before they begin. They wait for certainty, clarity, or approval. But readiness is not a requirement for progress. Action creates clarity. Movement builds belief. Every small step taken reinforces the idea that you are capable of learning, adapting, and growing. This understanding shifts how you approach goals. Instead of focusing on the distance between where you are and where you want to be, you focus on the next step in front of you. This removes overwhelm and creates momentum. Each completed action, no matter how small, becomes proof that growth is happening. Confidence grows not from perfection, but from participation. Financial confidence develops the same way. Rather than expecting dramatic financial change overnight, you begin to build habits that support stability. You track, plan, learn, and adjust. You make decisions with intention rather than emotion. Each responsible choice reinforces your ability to manage money effectively. Over time, fear loosens its grip and is replaced by clarity. This chapter also addresses the importance of consistency over intensity. Many people start strong but struggle to maintain momentum. They rely on bursts of motivation that fade quickly. Small wins create a different pattern. They require less emotional energy and are easier to sustain. This consistency compounds, creating visible progress that reinforces belief. Emotionally, small wins reduce self-doubt. When you consistently show up for yourself, the inner voice that questions your ability grows quieter. You no longer need constant reassurance because you have evidence. You remember past actions that worked. This memory strengthens resilience and reduces fear of failure. This chapter encourages you to redefine what success looks like on a daily basis. Success becomes showing up, learning, and adjusting, not achieving perfection. This mindset creates freedom. You are no longer trapped by unrealistic expectations. You move forward with patience and confidence. As your confidence grows, your willingness to take calculated risks increases. You begin to step slightly outside your comfort zone, knowing you can handle uncertainty. These risks are not reckless. They are grounded in self-trust. Each risk taken and managed well becomes another small win. The chapter also highlights the importance of acknowledging progress. Many people move quickly from one goal to the next without pausing to recognize growth. This creates a constant feeling of inadequacy. By acknowledging small wins, you reinforce positive momentum. You teach your mind to associate effort with reward. By the end of this chapter, confidence no longer feels like something distant or fragile. It feels grounded and dependable. It does not disappear when challenges arise because it is built on experience, not emotion. You trust yourself because you have evidence. You believe in growth because you see it happening. You move forward because momentum is real. Small wins may seem insignificant in isolation, but together, they build the foundation for lasting success. Confidence grows quietly, steadily, and powerfully, one step at a time. Chapter 8. Money is a tool for freedom, not fear. For many people, money is not just currency, it is emotion. It carries fear, stress, hope, and pressure all at once. Even the thought of money can trigger anxiety about not having enough, losing what you've earned, or making the wrong decisions. This chapter invites you to step out of fear-based thinking and into a new relationship with money, one rooted in clarity and choice rather than control. Fear-driven money decisions often happen quickly and emotionally. You may avoid looking at your finances because they make you uncomfortable. You may spend impulsively to escape stress or hesitate to invest because uncertainty feels unsafe. None of these behaviors mean you are bad with money. They mean your relationship with money has been shaped by fear rather than understanding. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to see money differently. Money is not meant to control you. It is meant to support you. When you shift your perspective, money becomes a tool for freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to plan, and freedom to respond to life with flexibility. This shift does not require wealth to begin. It begins with awareness. You start by separating your worth from your wallet. Your value does not rise or fall with your income. Once this separation is clear, emotional pressure eases. You're able to look at money more objectively. Decisions become practical rather than personal. This clarity is the foundation of financial empowerment. With fear reduced, intention grows. You begin to direct money instead of reacting to it. You create plans that align with your goals. Saving becomes a form of self-respect. Investing becomes belief in your future. Spending becomes intentional rather than impulsive. Each choice reinforces the idea that you're capable of managing your financial life. This chapter also addresses the fear of not knowing enough. Many people delay financial growth because they feel overwhelmed by information. But confidence does not come from knowing everything. It comes from willingness to learn. When you approach money as a skill rather than a threat, curiosity replaces avoidance. As you grow more comfortable, you begin to see how money supports freedom beyond survival. It creates options. It allows you to choose environments that support your well-being. It gives you the ability to invest in learning, health, and experiences that enrich life. Money becomes a facilitator of growth, not a source of fear. This perspective also encourages patience. Wealth built in fear seeks quick relief. Wealth built in clarity seeks long-term stability. You stop chasing shortcuts. You focus on consistency. You understand that small, intentional decisions compound over time. This patience reduces stress and increases confidence. Emotionally, this chapter brings relief. You no longer feel at the mercy of financial uncertainty. Even when challenges arise, you trust your ability to adapt. This trust is empowering. It allows you to stay grounded and focused. As this chapter closes, money feels lighter, not because it has disappeared, but because fear has loosened its grip. You see money for what it truly is, a resource that responds to intention, discipline, and self-trust. Money does not define you. Money does not control you. Money supports the life you're building. When fear fades, freedom grows. And with every intentional choice, your confidence deepens and your growth continues. Chapter 9. Becoming the person who sustains success. Reaching success is often celebrated, but sustaining it requires a different kind of strength. Many people focus on achieving goals without preparing for what comes after. They imagine success as an endpoint rather than a responsibility. This chapter shifts the focus from reaching milestones to becoming the person who can hold them with confidence and clarity. Success is not just something you experience. It is something you manage. As this chapter unfolds, you begin to understand that long-term growth depends less on external circumstances and more on internal stability. Opportunities come and go. Markets shift. Life changes. What determines whether success lasts is your ability to adapt without losing yourself. This begins with identity. When success is tied to ego, it becomes fragile. Praise inflates it. Criticism threatens it. Fear of loss creates anxiety. But when success is tied to values, it becomes grounded. You no longer need constant validation. You focus on alignment rather than approval. This stability allows you to move through both growth and challenge with composure. This chapter explores the emotional maturity required to sustain success. Emotional maturity is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about responding to difficulty with awareness. It is the ability to pause instead of react, to reflect instead of panic, and to choose long-term outcomes over short-term comfort. Financially, this maturity is critical. Many people struggle not because they cannot earn, but because they cannot sustain. They experience cycles of growth and collapse, often driven by emotional decisions. As you develop self-awareness, these cycles smooth out. You plan rather than react. You adjust rather than abandon. You view setbacks as part of the process rather than signs of failure. This chapter also addresses the responsibility that comes with growth. As capacity increases, so does influence. You begin to understand that your habits, decisions, and mindset impact not only you, but those around you. This awareness encourages integrity. You act with intention because you understand the ripple effect of your choices. Another key theme in this chapter is adaptability. Sustained success requires flexibility. Rigid thinking breaks under pressure. Adaptive thinking evolves. You learn to let go of methods that no longer serve you while holding on to values that anchor you. This balance allows growth to continue even when circumstances change. As this chapter continues, you begin to see learning as a lifelong practice rather than a phase. You remain curious. You invest in growth. You accept that mastery evolves. This openness keeps you relevant, resilient, and grounded. Emotionally, you develop patience. You stop expecting constant highs. You accept steady progress. This reduces stress and increases satisfaction. You find fulfillment in consistency rather than chaos. By the end of this chapter, success feels less intimidating. It no longer feels like something you might lose at any moment. It feels like something you can steward with confidence. You trust yourself to handle growth because you have built the inner structure to support it. You are no longer chasing success. You are living in alignment with it. Sustained growth comes from becoming, not achieving. And you are becoming someone capable, grounded, and prepared for what comes next. Chapter 10. You are always enough. At the end of every journey, there's a moment of reflection, not to judge how far you've come, but to understand what the journey was truly about. As this chapter unfolds, you may realize that everything you have explored so far was never meant to change your worth. It was meant to remind you of it. From the beginning, growth may have felt like a destination, something waiting in the future, something that would finally make you feel complete. But now, with greater awareness, you begin to see that growth was never about becoming worthy. It was about becoming aware of the worth that was already there. Every belief you questioned, every habit you adjusted, and every fear you faced did not add value to you. They revealed it. You were never broken. The desire to grow was never a sign of lack. It was a signal of life moving through you, calling you forward. Growth was not proof that you were incomplete. It was proof that you were capable of expansion. The moment you stop measuring yourself against impossible standards, you feel a quiet sense of relief. You are no longer chasing approval. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are no longer postponing peace. This chapter brings together success, money, and meaning in a new way. You now understand that success is not a performance. It is alignment. When your actions match your values, progress feels steady rather than forced. Money is no longer a source of pressure or identity. It is a resource that supports the life you are intentionally building. Wealth, in its truest form, includes confidence, clarity, health, and freedom of choice. As you look back on the journey, you recognize how much has shifted internally. You trust yourself more. You react less. You plan with intention. You rest without guilt. These changes may seem subtle, but they are powerful. They represent maturity, awareness, and self-respect. This chapter also acknowledges that growth never truly ends. There will always be new goals, new lessons, and new challenges. But now, growth feels different. It no longer feels like a race to prove yourself. It feels like a path you walk with confidence. You no longer fear being behind because you trust your direction. One of the most meaningful realizations in this chapter is that success does not require you to become someone else. It asks you to become more honest, more aligned, and more present. You are not required to erase your past or deny your struggles. They are part of your story, not limitations. Emotionally, there is peace here, not because everything is perfect, but because you are grounded. You understand that progress includes setbacks. You understand that confidence grows through action. You understand that money flows best when guided by clarity rather than fear. Most importantly, you understand that your worth is constant, even when circumstances change. As this audiobook comes to a close, the message is simple, yet profound. You are enough at the beginning. You are enough in the middle. You are enough while learning, building, and becoming. Growth is still in progress. And that is not a flaw. It is life unfolding. Carry this understanding forward. Let it guide your decisions, shape your goals, and ground your ambition. Success will continue to grow, not because you're trying harder, but because you are moving from a place of trust. You are always enough, and your growth is still unfolding.